Welcome back, everybody. Great timing for this guest tonight because about 2 weeks ago, the House passed the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act of 2024 by a vote of 357 to 70. And while the U.S. Senate considers the House bill or makes their own changes to the tax credit provisions, one of the major successes of that legislation is with great thanks to our next guest. Since 2021, FEMA has declared over 300 disasters impacting nearly 90% of our country. 45 states have experienced a covered disaster in the last 3 years. So whether it's the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, the ongoing California wildfires out here, or the recent historic hurricane damage in the Sunshine State, Florida Congressman Greg Steube is delivering for families, small businesses, and workers after his sponsored legislation titled the Federal Disaster Tax Relief Act was passed in that package that was sent over to the Senate. Congressman, we love having you on the show. This is so important. It affects so much of our country. Can you talk to us about the meat of this provision in that tax relief bill?
Yeah, and it's affected every single person that lives in my district, from Hurricane Ian to Hurricane Idalia. Just about every Floridian was affected by a hurricane since 2020. And as you said, you did a great job synopsizing what this disaster relief does. Over 45 states are impacted. Every single disaster that's been declared, federally declared disaster since 2020 will be included. You will be able to deduct your expenses as it relates to those disasters from your taxes. This is money that's going direct in the pockets of everyday Americans, every single person that's been affected by wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, train derailment, you name it. Every single person in Southwest Florida has been affected by this. I was hoping to get it done before the extension deadline of February 15th, but obviously, as we sit here, that's obviously not happening and passing the Senate. So I encourage every person, once this bill becomes law, to file an amended return for your tax year, whenever that disaster was, to be able to take advantage of real savings straight from the IRS. It'll go right back to you.
Yeah, so important, so common sense. Actually remarkable that it hadn't been addressed this way before. It's very important stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to turn to something else, because earlier this week we had the former Israeli ambassador to the United States who said, listen, it's time for the United States to kick the UN out of New York, given all the revelations we've learned about the UNRWA workers and a possibility of a Hamas headquarters beneath one of their facilities. You're taking action to make a reality a part of that, which is to defund UNRWA. Tell us why this is such an important moment.
Yeah, we know now that they were having tunnels, Hamas tunnels underneath their headquarters in Palestine. Now there's been reports where over 100 Hamas terrorists were trained by UNRWA. Why in the world are Americans sending their taxpayer dollars to an organization like this that is literally funding and training terrorists? I think we need to stand for the American people and stand for the safety and security of the American people, and not have our tax dollars going to fund terrorism across the world. So I filed a bill. There's a companion bill in the Senate that would not allow our tax dollars to be funded to them, and reroute that money to finish the border wall construction.
That's a big deal.
You know, and I think about the hundreds of billions of dollars that has come from the United States to the UN over the years, maybe even in the trillions. Dollar for dollar, how much is this going to save the American people in the form of it going towards the border wall? Do we have any idea how much even on an annualized basis that we are pumping into that could go to building the wall?
Yeah, it'll be millions of dollars. And you're right. Like, this administration, the Biden administration, opened up $6 billion to Iran, did away with sanctions so that they could sell oil. They're making hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. It is then funding terrorism. Right before Hamas attacked Israel, there was like $300 million that the State Department under Biden administration sent to the so-called Palestinian Authority, that money was used to actually attack our ally Israel. So this administration has a history of giving money to terrorist organizations, abandoning $80 billion worth of military equipment in Afghanistan so the Taliban can run around with our M4s and our Blackhawks and all of our equipment. They have an America Last agenda. Trump, when he was president, did away with the funding to UNRWA because they knew that it was going to these type of organizations. As soon as Biden got back in, he reopened the money going in. I think Congress needs to stand for the American people and end the funding to these different organizations.
A big moment. I think people in many countries are going to be interested to see the outcome of that. So I want to keep on the topic of the border. We are hearing reports that Speaker Johnson tried to get Joe Biden to meet and negotiate on border security, and Joe Biden's turned him down. Can you tell us what you know about that and what message that might send to the American people about the administration's commitment to the border?
Yeah, this is Joe Biden's open border. 10 million illegals have come in, over 300 known terrorists on the terrorist watch list. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's like over 30,000 Chinese Communist Party members, over 30,000 Russians, Afghans, Iranians. They're all coming in through the southern border. And these people aren't coming here because they want to live the American dream. They're coming here because they want to destroy our country from the inside. And this administration is letting it happen. Don't let the talking points from the White House and the Democrats that the House is holding up funding to be able to allow for more border agents. That is a complete and absolute lie. We have passed H.R. 2, which would do all of the things at the border that would put in place some of Trump's policies, remain in Mexico, reform the asylum process, that have to happen to prevent the atrocities we see happening at our southern border.
Yeah, so important.
Yeah. And Congressman, you know, we used to just hear about cartel-related crime in border cities and in sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, but it's starting to bleed out into the rest of America. And yesterday we had on Brandon Judd, and we were talking about the effect of cartels and the fact that now, I mean, we used to just have conversations about Sinaloa and MS-13, but now you actually have cartels who are in concert working with other cartels from other nations, like from Venezuela, that are actually teaming up. Have we effectively lost control? The Biden administration seems to have just completely relinquished control in all different categories to the cartel.
Yeah, they've lost control. Look at the crime skyrocketing in all of our big cities. Look at the results of these open border policies where gangs are running relentless across our country and organized crime coming across the border. It's my understanding that nobody crosses the southern border without the cartels and Mexico being involved in this. And you have all of these unvetted individuals coming into our country, murderers, rapists, terrorists, who wish to do us harm. If he genuinely cared about the safety and security of American people, he would shut down the border. He has the ability to do it today. He had the ability to do it 3 years ago, and he reversed all of Trump's policies that opened us up into the current conditions. So again, don't let this talking point from the Democrats and from the White House that it's the Republicans in the House fault that we don't have border security. He could change it with the stroke of a pen out of the White House today or 3 years ago.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Sir, you're part of a very important process of evaluating whether President Biden should be impeached, and there is a pattern that is now emerging. Joe Biden meets with Jonathan Lee in Beijing. Jonathan Lee opens up an investment fund with Hunter Biden. Joe Biden meets with the Chinese national chairman of CEFC China, Chairman Yi, and all of a sudden $3 million flows into Hunter Biden's business accounts. He meets with a Kazakhstan guy at a lunch, and the next day Hunter Biden gets a car or money for a $140,000 fancy car. It seems as though Joe Biden played a very clear role in his family's business, and that is he was the rainmaker. When he showed up, people started writing checks. Is that the pattern you're beginning to see?
Yeah, and we've known that all along, and now we're getting corroborating witness testimony. That's exactly what happened. Thankfully, for the subpoenas that have been issued to the financial institutions, we now have financial evidence of the money that was laundered from the Chinese Communist Party or Russian oligarchs or the Ukrainian government and entities through the Biden family members, his brother James Biden and Hunter Biden. And we know that obviously Joe Biden was the impetus behind all of that. I filed an impeachment resolution last year. I felt like we had enough evidence at that point in time to move forward with impeachment of this president based on his complete corrupt behavior, not just in the White House, but as vice president. Everything was for sale. You wonder why we're weak on China policy right now? It's because he's compromised. You wonder why they want to give billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine? That's because his family made millions of dollars off the Ukrainians. There's no coincidence to what's happening. And finally, we're getting witness testimony and financial evidence of the crimes that he committed while vice president and that he acted on while president. Some of these meetings happened while he was president in the White House. And these are the type of things that thankfully now are coming before the American people as evidence and testimony. I was thankful that we got Tony Bobulinski in here to testify to some of this activity that happened. And we need to move forward with impeachment proceedings. It's what the American people want. And if we don't do it, justice will not be served.
Yeah.
Congressman, you have always been a great supporter of the America First agenda and the early supporter of President Trump in his run for the 47th president. Florida GOP has officially endorsed him. Is it time for all Republicans to get behind him?
Yeah, I endorsed him almost a year ago now. I felt like there's only one person that can walk in on day one and fix all these atrocities that we just talked about that are a result of Joe Biden, and that's President Trump. I've always supported him. I endorsed him early on, and I'm honored to do it. I believe he's the only person that can walk in there and change the disastrous course that our country is on today.
Yeah, no doubt.
Congressman, I think you're exactly right. And so many Americans see so many crises happening in practically every sector of American society, and they see him as a wartime president, and I think that's what's warranted. Thank you so much for being here tonight, sir. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah.